Matt, what's happening, brother?
What is up, man?
Dude, good to see you. It's been a while.
Yeah.
Dude, it was so fun going over to your place last night. So for the listeners' benefit here, we've got Matt Worthington on, and you host these dinners with your buddy Leo, and it was so cool actually seeing it all come to life, because I think a lot of these people a lot of people have these ideas of bringing people together, but then seeing it in action, seeing two young guys just like bring a really great group of people together and facilitate the whole thing, it was super cool. And there was Ziki there. So
Ziki, the best, the best.
Dude, that was like the fourth time this week I've had Ziki, and it honestly does not get old.
It never gets old, man. What's your go-to?
Dude, I get the pork bowl. Yeah.
Can't beat it.
Double pork. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's my go-to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. The smash burgers are hard to beat too.
Yeah. So Brett and my younger brother are obsessed with a smash burger, and our buddy Casey, obsessed. Like, I think like every time that's what they go with, but I like the bowls, filling. They like load that.
Yeah, you can load it up, right?
They load it up.
Double protein.
Yeah.
Add in the rice, add in the tzatziki sauce. I mean,
dude,
can't beat it.
Dude, well, before the show, so I didn't know this until we sat down and started talking, but you were saying that you're getting ready to run a 70.3 Ironman here in Waco. When's that, October?
October. Yep.
Okay,
second
cool.
week.
And it's funny enough, I'm wearing the Waco Ironman shirt. Or this isn't the Waco one. This is the Timberlake one. But, that's something that Brett and I have done. That's kind of how the show started. We ran this Ironman together, and then all of the things that we've done since, writing on Twitter, starting the podcast, started after that. And so I also know about you that you've done 75 Hard and a few other big challenges, but I'm excited to hear more about this Ironman experience, dude. So what made you sign up for it?
The challenge itself.
Yeah.
About a year ago, I told myself that I was going to dedicate at least 1 year of my life to health and fitness and really getting into it and learning as much as I possibly could. And one of the things I did earlier in the year was a 40-minute cold plunge at 40 degrees just to see if I was capable of doing it.
40 minutes?
40 minutes, yes. And
what temp?
40 degrees.
Dang, dude, that is insane.
Dude, I don't recommend it. Like, it was insane, right? But I did it, and it started this path and this journey to see what else I could accomplish. So then I did a 1 mile tire flip, and now I'm planning on doing a half Ironman, which I think is something we could all do if we put our mind to it, right? Just like 75 Hard was when I finished that earlier in the year as well. But just something to challenge myself and put myself out of my comfort zone and hold myself accountable to this goal of doing as much as I can to learn more about fitness, learn more about what my body's capable of, and just ultimately growing.
Dude, that's so impressive. So, all right, take me to the 40-minute ice plunge. So at what point were you certain that you were going to make it, but that you were like, yeah.
Minute 26.
You were good.
Like, I just remember specifically at minute 26, I'm shivering uncontrollably. But it's like, man, you've already done 26 minutes. You have 14 to go. It's all mental at that point. And you just grind it out, dude. You kind of meditate and daydream a little bit, make sure your mind goes different places rather than being too present.
Yeah.
And not being able to feel your extremities, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, minute 26 was probably where I was like, there's no turning back. Like, I got to finish.
Where'd your mind go to during some of those longer minutes? Like, were you just kind of getting lost in thought, or?
I think it's like this idea of showing up for yourself. I'd committed to the idea that I was going to go into the cold plunge for 40 minutes. And if I didn't make it, then I would have felt like I was cutting myself short of what I could be capable of. And I didn't want to let myself down. But also, of course, you think of like David Goggins and some of these crazy fitness guys that are like you can do it, like, who's going to pick up the boats? Like, nobody else. Like, it's got to be you,
Yeah. So any takeaways after doing that stick with you today?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is we are all more capable. We are more capable than we realize, and more capable than we think we are. And I love the the rule that I think the Navy SEALs come up with, where it's the 60-40 rule. Whenever you feel like you're done, you still have 40% left in the tank. And that mindset and that idea is so applicable to other things in life as well. It's not just physical challenges as well. And so just trying to keep that in mind in my day-to-day has been super beneficial. That's probably the biggest takeaway from the cold plunge.
I love it. Well, I'd be curious to learn a little bit more about why you wanted to do that year of just focusing on health and fitness. How old are you?
24.
24. All right. Young buck. Yeah. That was one of the reasons I was excited to have you on. So I'm going to have our buddy Dom on, who was at the same dinner.
Yeah.
And I'm just really impressed with young guys who see the narrow path early on and identify that they want to take some risks and do something that's a little bit unconventional. So I applaud you for what you're doing, and I'm sure we'll dive into it a bunch, but I'm just curious, like, what was the idea behind doing that year of just focusing on health and fitness? Because at 24, it's super easy to just be like, I can just get away and rest on my laurels and just like not focus on this and still be like fine.
Yeah. So since I'd say 20 years old, something that I really try to focus on is setting a challenge for each year, right? And so 3 years ago, I wrote a book, and that was my challenge throughout that year, was just like the process of writing and learning how to be a better author, and then publishing the book, and then marketing the book, and getting on different radio shows to promote the book, that sort of thing. And then the year after that was all about money. I wanted to see how much I could make, figure out different streams of income that made sense for me, learn about financial literacy. And what I found with some of the challenges prior to that, and especially the most recent one of the making as much as I possibly could, was I was still unfulfilled. And I wanted to try to find something that made me feel good and made me, or gave me the opportunity to be more in tune with what made me feel best. And when I realized that going out and trying to make a lot of money wasn't the thing that was the most fulfilling goal, what I realized was there's got to be more. And something that I neglected for a long time was the fitness. You know, I worked all the time, and so I wasn't taking care of my health. I wasn't taking care of going to the gym as much as I should, wasn't eating properly. And so I said, what better thing to focus on within this year than trying something around the health and fitness space, but still do it in a way that's challenging. And so, yeah, that's kind of like where the idea and the concept came from. And it's really been eye-opening to realize that, you know, I was lying to myself for a really long time. And I wasn't eating properly. I wasn't exercising the right way. I wasn't doing my due diligence and learning from those who are more knowledgeable. I was a little bit egotistical, thinking that, oh, I look good, I feel good, you know, everything's great, but that wasn't the case.
How'd you pull yourself out of that situation where you realized you were lying to yourself or accepting some things that just weren't really all that true?
I think 75 Hard was really eye-opening, but also doing it in a way where I was reaching out to people who were more versed in the space and had more experience. There's a gentleman in town, his name's Patrick Lyons. He's a fitness coach, really good dude. Yeah. And he was the one that helped set up part of my meal plan, my diet plan, and my nutrition, and had me counting calories, which, you know, I understand some people don't, some people do. But what it taught me was I was not eating the right way. I was eating a lot of good foods, but I was eating too much of it. And that was super eye-opening. It's like, yes, you can eat 100 bananas a day, but if that puts you over your calorie count by, you know, 6,000 calories, then it does you no good.
Right.
So it was interesting seeing that side of it. And then what was also interesting was I started feeling really bad during the middle 75 Hard. 2 workouts a day, follow a strict diet, no cheat meals. It had me feeling very fatigued and lethargic. And so during the middle of 75 Hard, I kind of went away with the meal plan that was provided and went away from counting the calories and instead focused more on a approach of eating whole foods, like grass-fed ground beef and sweet potatoes and avocado and eggs, and just simply changing the diet that way helped significantly. Energy restored, workouts were better, and I saw the physical results improve as well.
Yeah, the information that you can gather just by being consistent. So like you setting up the framework for doing 75 hard, you basically have created an environment, like a tunnel where you can start to play with different variables. So it's cool that you actually identified one to change and then saw positive outcomes, because I'm sure that'll just have a positive impact for you for the rest of your life. You've identified that better food actually does make a difference.
100%.
Yeah.
I think also too, just being open and receptive to what other people are recommending and encouraging based off of their own personal experience, but also being open and receptive to how it makes you feel. And something that I told last night to the group of guys is, I look up to you, and I look up to Matt, and I look up to Jake Wan for going against the grain and for working to disrupt the food industry in the most positive way possible, and state the facts and the truth about what we should be consuming, what we should be putting in our body. And after watching your content and after listening to people in your industry, I mean, it changed my life and really was part of the reason that I was able to finish 75 hard, because I don't think I would have if I was still eating the same foods.
Dang, that's cool to hear. And it's good to know that the information is getting out there. We're not just speaking into the mics for no reason. So I'm curious, I find it really impressive that you identified the importance of having a coach and having someone who can actually help you level up your game. I don't know, were you an athlete growing up?
An athlete, yes.
Okay. So you get it, like the importance of a coach being your eyes in the sky who can help you actually get to a level that you probably otherwise would set a limit on yourself, or maybe you would have some misguided cues and lose confidence because you're just like doing the wrong things. It's so important. And I lost that early in my 20s. I didn't really embrace the idea of having a coach, totally played into the ego game thinking I could do stuff all on my own. So for you to identify that at 24 is huge. So I'm wondering, like, what was that experience like in a little bit more detail? Like, what made you be like, hey, I'm going to invest in this coach and actually think of it as an investment instead of being like, yeah, it's just some cost that I don't need to endure?
Well, I think when you see some of the brightest minds and brightest individuals and most successful people out there who've made it, per se, and you see them very humbly admit that they have coaches, it makes you realize even the best have coaches. Like, and maybe that's why they are the best, is because they go out and seek guidance and advice from people who've been there, or people who know more than they do in that particular field or that space or that industry or whatever it is that they're trying to actively pursue. And fitness was something that I didn't know much about. As much as I thought I did, and as much as I had worked out over the years and the sports that I've played, I felt like the results spoke for themselves. I didn't look the way I wanted to. I didn't feel the way I wanted to. And so the best way to get there was to go and seek help and guidance and advice from somebody who was a little bit more versed in that space than I was. And Patrick was that guy, He was awesome. And so that also like started the thought process of like, where else can I optimize? What else can I do to level up in this faucet of life or that faucet? And then you go out and get coaches in the world of in the financial world, and then you go out and get coaches in the relationship world, and you go out and get coaches for anything, frankly. And I think it's super important to do that.
Were you ever thinking about going down the corporate path, or did you kind of identify early on that you wanted to do something a little bit different?
What's funny is I still work in the corporate world.
You do?
And I actually had a call earlier this morning with my boss telling him that I was going to leave.
Let's go.
Which is crazy. It happened today.
I didn't realize that, so apologies for not knowing that ahead of time.
No.
I love it.
Well, I don't brand myself that way because it's not what I'm passionate about. And that was the conversation that I had today with my boss was I told him, I was like, look, man, I know this isn't what I want to do forever. And I have to follow that inner drumbeat. I have to follow my intuition and do what I feel is best for me in this moment. And it's so funny because as amazing as my boss is and as supportive as he is, what I realized in that moment was his reaction was very telling of what I think a lot of people feel in the corporate world. When I told him that, he was still trying to find a way to keep me on board, which I understand. But it's telling because I think in the corporate world, a lot of people live in a state of fear, in a state of comfort, and they have maybe a scarcity mindset that you can't go out and accomplish what it is that you dream of, and that passion that you have isn't something that is can be turned into a business and that is attainable. And him reacting in a way of trying to keep me there was stability for him as well, you know? And I almost wonder, I wish I would have asked him if he had dreams or aspirations and if he regrets maybe not acting on those now that he is older. And I don't want to be the person 30, 40, 50 years from now that looks back and says that I didn't take that chance.
Yeah. You will always wish that you had at least tried.
Yeah.
That's so cool, man. So you're fresh off this. So walk me through like what made you actually come to terms with the decision? Cause I'll tell you my story. So when I quit the corporate world, I was very uneasy about it. I had been in the same job for 5-6 years, was very comfortable in my position. There was clearly a ceiling on how much I could grow, and the time frame that I was going to be able to make those next steps was much slower than I wanted to take. Mm-hmm. And for me, it wasn't just about that. It was also kind of the work I was doing. There were certain aspects of it that I just didn't really love. There were certain aspects that were definitely very cool. But to me, there was definitely this voice in my head that was very interested in figuring out a different path in the world that I was most interested in, which was the food system and just health overall. Mm-hmm. And so I'd come across a job posting from a guy down here in Austin. And I was just like, I wrote this crazy email to him being like, yeah, this is totally for me. Like long, insane. Like I looked back and read it the other week and I was like, dude, how did this get his attention? Cause it's kind of crazy. But anyways, I got his attention, and that was the wake up sign for me to actually be like, okay, I believe that I threw this resume in there just hoping that I could get his attention, and then it actually worked out. So that gave me the belief to be like, if I got his attention, I can probably replicate that in some form and create like a little bit of a pocket for myself and like start something in this space. So I ended up making a bet with my buddy, my roommate at the time. And he was like, dude, if you don't quit on Friday, we're going out to a steak dinner. And if you haven't quit by then, you pay. And if you have quit, I pay. I was like, dude, I'm not losing this bet. So let's go.
I'm not paying for your steak.
Yeah, so I quit. And that was kind of the start of it all. But I'm curious for you, like, what was the actual moment? Because it's tough being in that seat and actually making the move. Like there is so much resistance. And you mentioned fear. That's the one. Like that keeps people in the spot that they're at.
Mm-hmm. So let me clarify. So I'm leaving one job to take another job.
Okay.
And the reason I'm taking this other job, which is a smaller company, not as stable, not as, doesn't have as many resources to help keep me comfortable, is because they're offering me more.
Yeah.
But the reason that I'm going to that job and taking the risk to going to this new company, this smaller company that's a little bit, shaky per se, is because they're paying me more, and the ability to have more is going to allow me to start to build that safety blanket so that I can burn the boats and go all in.
Yeah.
So that's that. But it's been a year of just self-discovery, of trying to figure out what really makes me happy. And I think what really makes me happy at the end of the day, and something that I realized this past year, actually on a work trip, was some of my best memories come from spending time with the people I love, of course, but also traveling. And so I started to think, like, how can I create a lifestyle design around the things that I enjoy? Being around interesting people, learning from those smarter than me, spending time with those that I love, and being able to travel. And Leo and I have been working on our dinner parties, being around people more interesting than us, learning from them, people that we love, that we enjoy being around. And the dinners have been phenomenal. And what we've recently come up with are retreats, and that will allow us to travel. And so kind of the things that we're working on now are in place intentionally to help get one step closer to the end goal. And so essentially I've given myself 2 years. I got a 2-year guarantee at this company.
Love it.
And the conversation I had with my boss today was, he was upset that I was leaving their company to move to another company in the same industry. And I told him, I said, I'm gonna call him Joe. I want to put his name out there. I said, Joe, if I'm still in the dental industry in 2 years, it means I did something wrong.
I love it. So you've got it mapped out.
And that's the plan.
Yeah.
And maybe it doesn't work out, right? But the way I look at it is, either it ends up being the best thing that ever happened to me, or I learn.
Yeah.
And you move on.
And that learning experience will take you to the next spot where you'll learn more.
Yeah.
One of the things I'm impressed by is you guys are curating the lifestyle. You said design the lifestyle that you want. And there is so much value in actually doing that, whether it's like joining the gym that might cost a little bit more, but being around the people that push you and make you more interested in things that you're curious about. And you have that home gym setup, which is the ultimate curation of lifestyle. You bring people in there, you get to connect with people, and it's really like this communal environment. You said you do a workout every Saturday or something like that?
Every Saturday.
Dude, is there anything better than bringing people together in your own home gym that you've made and just being able to like have cool conversations and get to connect with people more?
There's nothing better, man. And I think something that I go back to is, there's a guy in town, his name's Isaac Quintanilla, and he owns the Cauldron. And he was telling me a story one time about a conversation he had with his mentor. And his mentor asked him, Isaac, what does your dream day look like? And he told him, okay, well, I'd wake up in the morning, I would take my dog for a walk, I'd go to the Greenbelt, and then I'd go to a coffee shop, probably have some tacos at the coffee shop, work on some stuff, maybe go show some houses because he's really passionate about real estate, and then go home, have dinner, and then go back out and have some cocktails with friends. He's like, that is my perfect day. That's what I want to do. And what's so crazy is Isaac now owns a coffee and cocktail house here in town. And every day he wakes up, takes his dog for a walk, goes into his own coffee shop, has tacos that he has there ready to go, has his coffee, eats his tacos, goes and shows real estate, and then comes home, eats dinner, and then goes back to the shop for the cocktails with good friends, family, whoever, all around good conversation and meaningful connection. And when he told me that, I started to think, wow, how could you start to create and build a life around the things that interest you? And this past year taught me that health and fitness is super important for you, but something that I really enjoyed. And being around people is something really important to me. Friends, family, community. And so started investing a lot of money in the home gym. Got the cold plunge, got the sauna, have 2 racks, dumbbells up to 100 pounds, lat pull down machine, all of it.
It's
right?
legit.
It's awesome. And something that my mother kept saying was, do you really think it's necessary to spend all this money on a home gym? And I understand, right? It's a lot of money that goes into it, but I don't think you can put a dollar amount on your health. You can't put a dollar amount on the memories that are made and the connections that are made within that gym environment, and having the opportunity to bring people together to help support their ultimate fitness, their well-being, but also just have meaningful conversation and connection that you'll remember for a lifetime.
Yeah.
And so I'll continue to add stuff to the gym to make it the most badass gym that you can think of, and just continue to encourage people to come over and share that space with me.
Yeah, that investment in improving yourself through physical activity and just working out, working on your body, working on your mindset is huge. Then investing in the community aspect of it, of bringing people together, is also huge. And then there's just kind of the overarching, like, you're making it a thing that people can incorporate into their weekly schedule. And then it like from there, there's really like a lot of gravity to it. Like it becomes like a little bit of a culture around it where people are just excited to be a part of it. And yeah, it's just really cool. Like we've been starting to host these runs on Tuesdays and grilling out on Saturdays. And I just try to, for me, I try to make it so when I do something like that, I kind of just like set the bar at a minimum. So I'm just like consistent with it. It's like with the steaks, it's just like commit to it and invite like a handful of people over. Don't make it like too big of a thing where you're not gonna be able to do it. And so it's just been fun seeing how that actually does start to develop a little bit of like a expectation with your friends. Like, yo, I got to come over. Like, let me come over on Saturday and grill out. I'm like, yeah, we're doing it again. So it's
well, it's cool too, because you're doing the exact same thing. It's like, what would you do every day if you had the chance to do it every day? You'd work out and you do it. You'd podcast, you'd have a conversation with people and you do it. You would run a company based off of the lifestyle you're already living, animal-based, right? And you do it. Now you have noble origins. Like, it's incredible to see other people doing it. And I hope you know it's inspiring too. And you never know who's watching, who looks up to you, who wants to be like you. So you just need to continue to follow that inner drumbeat and that intuition and that calling of what makes you happiest, because when you do it, it inspires other people to do the same.
Yeah. And there's just like designing your lifestyle that way. It makes the days when you're like going through something like so much better, because you know, you're just like, this is what I would be doing anyways. So like today might be a little less great, but I'm still just like doing what I want to be doing. And just being able to do it with people too is great. So I'm curious about what you guys have been doing with the dinners, because last night I experienced it for the first time, and it was beyond impressive just seeing you and Leo kind of run the script on the dinner. Like, you guys had a really amazing grasp of just structure, but also just like allowing things to flow. So there was like a few prompts that you guys had. You had food that was like clearly well thought out in terms of how you wanted to, like, you wanted there to be like a message behind the food. You wanted people to actually like take away something from every little experience that you guys put into place. I don't know. It's obviously is thought out and you guys have put a lot of energy into it, but I'm just curious to learn more about like just the idea behind that, because getting really good people in the room is kind of like, in my opinion, just like step one of having a good life. Like, you just want to surround yourself with the right people. So for you guys to be doing that at a young age, it's awesome to see.
Thank you, man. Yeah, the structure is very intentional. And I think it's been really nice to work through the structure together, to get feedback from others, to be receptive of that feedback, and then to implement new fun tasks and things for our guests to do, to really help facilitate that bond and that connection. But it's almost like you think back to the medieval times and just being at a round table with knights, with powerful men it's a great feeling, but also a great way to talk to one another about things that matter, things that are important, and be a sounding board for one another for our ideas and our own perspectives. And I think perspective is important, because all of our perspective on things are a little bit different, because we've all had different life experiences leading up to that particular time. And being able to hear from you, and then being able to hear from somebody that's not in the health and fitness space. Maybe they are interested in electric vehicles, and then somebody else is interested in cryptocurrency, and then somebody else is interested in real estate. Being able to hear everybody's perspective on things is great, because it helps kind of, it gives you the chance to reflect on your own perspective. So the dinners are a chance, selfishly, for Leo and I to learn from those that we want to learn from, that we're interested in spending time with. And with all of our lives being so busy, you can't necessarily always spend one-on-one time with a bunch of people if you have a busy schedule. So there's no better way than to bring people together in one setting and then have the opportunity to do it there. But something I always go back to as well is if you want to be in a room of high-level entrepreneurs, of very intelligent individuals, of business owners, creatives, influencers, and visionaries, and you're not getting invited to those rooms, then you just create it yourself. You know?
100%. And there's nothing stopping you from doing that other than just reaching out to the people that you're interested in. And it's easy to get people excited about having good food. like it's not all that hard. What was the inspiration? Like, was there a piece of information that you guys came across where it was like, maybe we should apply this? Or was it really just this idea, like, we want to get connected with certain people in town who are doing cool things. Let's just throw a party. Because if you guys, thought of that yourself, it's incredibly resourceful and impressive.
Thank you. Yeah, I think it was just the knowingness that connection is so important. And meaningful connections is important. And having conversations around things that matter are important. And collectively together trying to bring people in one uniform place to have the opportunity to discuss things that ultimately can make the world a better place. I think we all uniquely have something to offer the world in a way that can not just impact our lives individually, but impact the lives of people around us. And the people that come to our dinners are the next level thinkers. They are the ones that want to leave the world better off than what they found it. And the intention was to bring those movers and shakers together, but also to just share ideas. And yeah, it's been good.
Have there been any dinners where you've been challenged, or whether it's challenged in your own beliefs because someone brought something up that you weren't expecting, or just challenged to kind of raise the bar a little bit in terms of how you prepare for it?
Every time.
Yeah.
The guys that come to the dinners are all so high level. It almost gives you a kick in the butt for the next 2 weeks. We do them twice a month. You hear somebody that maybe just closed a huge deal with an investor, or that was on the Meat Mafia podcast and they're just an absolute stud, and you're like, oh, how do I get there? But yeah, like everybody is really, really good at something in that room, and being able to hear what they're really good at and how they've gotten to that point almost motivates you to go out and do more yourself.
Yeah. There's something about being around other people. You were talking about perspective earlier, just different perspectives. Like, I had no idea who was going to be at that dinner before I showed up, but there was clearly a lot of people who thought differently, but also had a shared set of values. And it did bring about, like, I think everyone, when you get in a situation like that, you're trying to put on your best. And so you almost are just reminded, like, what is my best? Like, how do I want to, like, be on a day-to-day basis? How do I want people to feel my energy that I put out into the world? And when you're at a round table with 10 other really high-performing dudes, that will definitely bring it out in you.
Yeah, and something we've tried to implement that we've actually learned from a gentleman in town, his name is Tan, and he throws events, and he's a super connector and community builder like no other, is he hosts dinners as well, and he does something that he calls a Jeffersonian-style of dinner, where during the dinner, there is a moderator who asks questions, and then the rest of the group then comes up with an answer that they personally feel called to share, but only one person is allowed to share at a time. And that allows for there not to be little side pockets of conversations throughout the dinner, and allows people to have the opportunity to use their voice and talk about what they feel is the answer aligned for them based off of that particular question and get feedback on that answer. It's not often that you get to be in a room of other high caliber and high level entrepreneurs and share your ideas openly without feeling a sense of being judged or a sense of that your perspective is not valid or valued. And then also the other side of it is after you do share, like having other high level guys give you feedback on that perspective to help you shape it in a way where it might suit you best when going back out into the world.
Yeah. It seems like today's age has brought about the ability for people to not have their thoughts or opinions tested in a way where it's, I'm looking you in the eyes, telling you what I really think about something that maybe is controversial, challenging, a unique perspective. And I think the path to shallow thinking is not having those ideas tested out in public, especially in a group where, it's not just, me and Brett talking to the mic on a podcast and someone else just has to hear it. It's not just an echo chamber. It's actually a group of people who are gonna push back if they disagree with what you say.
Yeah, so I was on a podcast the other day and I was talking about the golden rule. Treat everybody how you want to be treated. And the guy on the other end of the table, he said, Matt, I don't believe in the golden rule. I don't think you should treat other people how you want to be treated. You should treat other people how they want to be treated. And I was telling him, it's one thing to stop somebody and tell them that you think their perspective is wrong and then correct them. But I think it's another thing for that person to have the openness and receptiveness to accept that thought process and then decide how they want to change their perspective based off of hearing another person's perspective. And I think there's almost more power in openness and receptiveness to other people's thoughts and ideas. I think if we were all just a little bit more open to others' ideas and hearing why they have the perspective they have, this world would be a much better place.
Absolutely. And just the ability to listen to somebody that you might disagree with, but find, like, a lot of times you disagree on one thing, but agree on everything else they said. Or at least, like, you can find some common ground. We've definitely gotten into this age where it's like, oh no, I disagree with you on one thing, and then you just dismiss them.
Yeah, there shouldn't be that much polarity, right?
Yeah.
Find that common ground, find that common thread. We're all more alike than we are different. At the end of the day, we just want to be loved and heard and understood and feel like we matter.
Yeah.
And as humans, I think it's our responsibility to do that for one another. And it goes back to the dinner parties too. At the very beginning of every dinner party, we make sure to intro all of our guests. We think there's power and beauty in being the ones that facilitate those introductions. There's a book by Dale Carnegie, How to Win Friends and Influence People, and he talks about the best thing that you can do when meeting people and the best thing that you can do when spending time with others is make them feel like the most important person in that moment. Make them feel incredibly special and heard and listened to, and give them your full undivided attention. And if we are able to facilitate introductions for our guests who may not ever get that opportunity again to hear what they've accomplished, and have someone brag about the things that they're doing, then we've done our job because we've made them feel incredibly special in that moment. And that's something that we love to do.
Yeah, there's something about praise and just acknowledging somebody that goes a very long way. It sticks with people. So I'm interested in your and Leo's relationship too, because Brett and I co-host this podcast. He's unfortunately not here. Sorry, Brett. But there's something powerful about having someone that you fully trust. And Leo last night was talking about how he trusts you to the fullest extent as if he was trusting himself. And I think that as young guys, there's nothing more powerful than having one other dude who can just walk the walk, talk the talk, and put his foot on the line for you and himself every day. And that's been powerful for Brett and myself. So I'm just curious, like, backstory of your guys' relationship, and then what have you seen, or how have you seen that relationship work in your life for positive outcomes?
That's a great question, man. And I absolutely love Leo like a brother. Probably the most solid guy that I know, and that's why I work with him and will work with him for many years to come. And it excites me to actually talk about him because he's just such a good dude. But I think two things: values, and communication. So Leo and I connected because I was making YouTube videos about apartment locating, which was a past endeavor and side hustle, and I was just putting people on game, free content, just talking about how to get in the industry, how to make a lot of money. And he was somebody that was watching the videos, and he reached out and said, "Hey man, I see that you have these videos. I'd love to learn a little bit more if you have the time to just sit down for coffee. And I also see a couple things that you're currently working on." And one of those things was Riser, which is a community that I'm building here in Austin. And Leo decided to reach out because, one, he wanted to learn, but also he felt like he could add value, which I think is incredibly important, just to continue to add value to those you want to learn from, and they'll, with open arms, just help you any way that they can. And he figured out what my sweet spot was. You know, I wanted to continue to interview on our podcast high-level entrepreneurs, and Leo happened to know a lot of them. He's in a group called Tribe, and Tribe is made up of a lot of high-level entrepreneurs across the United States. And so we sat down, and it was like the most organic value exchange ever. You know, we were talking about apartment locating. He was talking about Riser and how he felt like he could make some introductions that would be fruitful. And it was like in that moment, we both realized a similarity between both of us. We just genuinely wanted to help people with asking nothing in return. You know, just put people on game, connect people, facilitate events that brought people together, and just give with an open heart, with expecting nothing in return. And over time, our relationship grew, and it got to the point where we're like, man, we're meeting all these really incredible people. His apartment locating skills were taken off, and he had, you know, the resources then to look into some other endeavors. And we're like, why don't we just start bringing people together in a singular space? And that's when we started the dinners. And we had no structure. We had no idea of where we were going to cater the food or how it was going to look. And we just started, and we just texted a few people. We said, hey, we think you're super dope. We'd love to have you come and sit down with us over a meal that we'll prepare for you. And the first one was a hit, and we were hooked. And so from there, it's grown, not just in a business sense, but in a relationship sense too. And I've learned that values are very important. You know, you got to make sure that your business partner is you guys believe in the same things. And some of the things we believe in are taking care of others, putting others before ourselves, making sure that, you know, there's open communication, which is the other side of it. And just being honest, you know, if you're not feeling the best that day and you're not 100% there and focused, like, just say that. If you have something the other, you know, business partner feels needs to get done and you can't get around to doing it, then just communicate that. You know, I can't get it done today. So values and communication, I think, are both very fundamental in business relationships. And luckily I have somebody that, you know, is passionate about those two things and feels those things are important as well.
Yeah. Well, you guys clearly have a great dynamic. I'm curious where he pushes you. Like, where do you feel like he kind of lends himself to you having to maybe bring a little bit of extra to your game, whether it's like in the business sense or just life? Like, what do you take from him that you're like, okay, like this is adding value to me, just being around something that he's really good at?
The way that he's able to genuinely connect with others in a way that makes that other person feel very heard and loved and understood and appreciated, like we talked about. But also Leo is very in tune with the way he feels. And I often find myself overworking myself and just, I'm the workhorse, just go, go, go. And Leo's like, dude, look at this life we live, man. It's beautiful. It's awesome. Take a breath, slow down. And so I think that dichotomy and that contrast is actually really beneficial. When I want to work all day, he wants to kind of take things slower, and we're able to find that balance. And for anybody who works a lot and likes to work, it's interesting because like taking a step back and like taking a day off it actually causes friction, you know, and you don't want to. You're like, no, we got to keep going, like totally. charge ahead. And so having him there to just be like, dude, like life is good. Just, you know, take your time today. Like no rush, take a breath, has been really helpful.
That's so awesome. And really cool to see you guys play off each other last night. It was awesome. You mentioned Riser Network. What's Riser all about? And is this part of kind of what you guys are doing and just bringing people together and doing all the networking that you guys are doing?
Yeah. So Riser is a separate community that's being grown, and obviously they overlap and they go hand in hand. Leo and I, we want to create more of a like exclusive and more of a private community, and Riser is more of a public community for men and women, entrepreneurs of all types, whether you're just starting or you've been in the industry that you're in for 20 plus years. And Riser, in its simplest form, is a success-driven community to share stories, grow leaders, and build community. We have a podcast. That's our form of sharing stories. The building community are our networking events. And then the growing leaders is the people. It's the advice, the insight, and the bridge between the two. And we started Riser 2 years ago, me and my partner, Christian, and my other partner, Zach Barney. And we just try and do as much as we can to bring people together to facilitate connection in a way that supports each and every person's personal endeavors and elevates their business and helps them get to that next level and find success, whatever success means to them.
So if you were talking to someone, maybe a younger version of yourself, about starting something like that, because it's something that's pretty easily accessible for people, there's not a whole lot of cost to entry other than your time and commitment, which is a lot. But
yeah.
How would you help them navigate those first initial steps to get going?
That's a really good question. I think it's all about starting. And the way Riser started was when I turned 18, I stopped drinking and found myself very lost all through college, finding a community and a group of friends that didn't drink. In college, a lot of people and students went out every weekend. That was the way socially one another interacted. And when I graduated from college, I was still lost trying to find that community and that sense of purpose, and being around other people who were focused on their personal development and their growth and cared to try and find a way to create social change and social impact. And I didn't know what that looked like. You know, I just wanted to be around people that, you know, wanted to do something positive and make a positive difference in the world. And I couldn't find it. You know, I couldn't find it. And if there were groups, they were like 40-year-olds, 50-year-olds, and like, I had no business there, right? You know? And so kind of like the dinners, I had just had this idea and was audacious enough just to be like, okay, well, if I'm not getting invited to these rooms or if I can't find this community, then just make it, you know? And so texted 25 people that I knew and made a little flyer, and I called it Austin's Most Successful Under 30. And who was I to call it that? Like, I definitely wasn't Austin's Most Successful Under 30, but it was a way to get people there. And I picked up pizza and had some drinks and asked a few people if they wouldn't mind sharing a little bit about what it was that they did. And it was awesome, man. It was a hit. And we had a guy there, his name is Robbie Zudok, and he was running a company called Sunnyside. And he brought a box of his hoodies and his hats, and he went up there and spoke, and it was really touching because his story all stemmed from, a struggle with mental health, and a portion of the proceedings from the sales would go and support mental health and a organization that he had chose. And after he spoke, everybody was so touched by his story that they went up and talked to him afterwards. And I'll never forget him walking up to me, and he had the cardboard box that all the clothes were in and the merchandise were in, and there was nothing in it. And he goes, tears in his eyes, he goes, "Dude, I've been struggling so much over the past couple months trying to start this company. Retail is incredibly difficult. And I just sold everything that I had on hand this evening. This was all the merch that I had." And it was in that moment that I realized that when you bring people together around the common goal of helping one another, you can truly change lives, whether it's lives outside of that room or the lives that are inside of that room. And the next event had 40 people, and then the next one had 60, and then the next one had 80, and they just continue to grow and grow and grow. And it was in that process that Christian Smith, my first business partner, came to one of the events, and we rebranded, turned it into Riser, and just upped the production and the scale of the events and the marketing and all that. And here we are.
Dude, I love it. And I feel like I need to name this podcast like Just Build It or Just Do It. Yeah. Man, it's so cool seeing how you don't, it seems this way that you don't have much friction around just getting in there and just starting and just doing it. And I think a lot of people struggle with that. So I think our audience is going to get a ton of value out of this, and just a young dude, 24 years old, just going after it and trying to figure out, what the future holds. It's really inspiring. And I think a lot of people are going to really resonate with your message. So, dude, just really appreciate you coming on, and seriously think sky's the limit for you, man. Like, incredible what you guys are doing, and just being able to help other people and do it in a way that's authentic and genuine is seriously awesome. So thanks, brother.
Bro. Well, let me say one thing, if that's all right.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's always going to be people that tell you can't do something. And just because they can't do something doesn't mean you can't do something. So believe in yourself, because it's not talent that gets you to center stage. It's audacity.
Dude, and belief is upstream of everything else. If you don't believe it, it's not going to happen.
That's right. Amen, brother.
I love it. All right, man. Appreciate you.
Thank you, bro.